Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Father-Son Packers podcast, your source for Packers news, notes, and analysis. My name is Tommy, and I'm one of your hosts, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, my dad, Matt. Dad, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Recovering from, I don't know how many hours, 100 hours of looking at data and organizing it. And we had, actually, well, we're in the gray time of year here. We have had, almost no sun for the last 4 days. I think, 2 weeks ago, when we had, some really nice, warm summer weather, I should have known.
It was not for long. Yep. It was never for long.
The last couple days, drizzling. It was no sun. But
it's not that here, I will tell you, down in San Diego. It is sunny. It has
we
been
had
sunny.
Nice visits. We had all kinds of grandkids here.
Yes. So, we are here on Wednesday, July 8th. So recording a little later than usual because
every week I'm pushing
we're pushing it back
because I'm not done yet.
Well, also, we had life stuff going on. So apologies.
We had a lot of
things going on. Yeah. But apologies for the late recording, but we are here to talk and finish our NFC North projections. We did defense last week. So if you want to go check those out, that's back in the feed. And we are doing offense this week. So we're going to talk about how the Packers stack up in the NFC North relative to, of course, the Lions, Bears, and Vikings, and look at how we are projecting these teams. And we're going to do a similar methodology to how we did it last week for the defenses. So we'll talk briefly about that just as a quick kind of re-summary of how we did that. But we'll, if you want a full in-depth summary of that, go back and listen to the defenses one as well. I think from the defenses one, my main takeaway is maybe I've been a little bit pessimistic about what the defense can be going into this year, if our projections hold. So maybe that's some good news. Maybe that's, maybe I need to readjust my priors. But so we're going to talk a little bit about that. Not a whole lot of news going on right now, so there's nothing really to touch on there. The only thing so far is that they've done, 30 members of the NFL Top 100, and none of them have been Packers so far. So, Dad, I guess quick question. Over under 2.5 Packers on the top 100. Actually, over under 3.5. Over under 3.5. Okay, you think Kraft's going to make it?
He ought to make it. I mean, maybe they'll be kind of stupid because he missed half the year, but he should be in the top 100.
I mean, I think he's a top 100 player.
Top 3 tight end.
Yeah, I think he's a top 100 player. I just don't know if he's going to get the respect yet because he didn't play the full year.
Will Zach Tom get enough respect? He also was finished the year hurt. I feel like people who finished the year hurt. So you got Love and Micah.
Yeah, I think they're locks. And then the question is McKinney, Jacobs, and Tom and Kraft. I think are the four
Jacobs
other.
Shouldn't maybe he will.
I think he should based on some of the I think he's better than Travis Etienne, who made the list. I think Jacobs is clearly better than him, and he was 97. So I feel like he probably will. He was the one that I was like, oh right, Jacobs too, and that's why I bumped it to 3.5. And then McKinney coming off more of a quiet year turnover wise. I just think and Tom I think is clearly a top 100 player in the NFL, but the offensive linemen never get respect in these lists. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's not on it.
He might not be because of that. And, he had, he missed the last 5 games, but he was still
he's definitely deserving
he's been a top 10 tackle the last 3 years.
Yeah. He's 100% deserving of being on the list. It's just, I think O-line usually get the short change there.
Let's see. So I was going to look up
because Jacobs was on the list last year, I think.
I think he was.
And he had a bit of a down year, but yeah, I guess we'll see. I'm thinking if it's 3.5, I'm going to take the under. I think we're going to get 3 on the list. I don't think they're going to put any of the receivers on the list. I'm worried Kraft isn't going to be on there just because he didn't play a lot of games last year. I think...
Yeah, he only played about half of it, and that was his first big breakout year. Yeah, I think it would have been different if he had already had a breakout year. Maybe he would get on the list for that, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he's not on there. I think he deserves to be on there, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's not on there. I don't think... I mean, I think if Evan Williams was going to be on there, he would have been in the 90s, so I don't think he's going to be a top 70 player. And then... Yeah, he seems a little... I don't think he's known well enough.
Yeah, and same goes for Wyatt Cooper. Those guys I think are borderline, but wouldn't be on the list if they're not on it already.
So yeah, I'm thinking we're gonna get 3, maybe 4, but that's kind of where I'm standing.
So when
you
say Achane, do you mean Travis Achane Jr.?
Yes.
Not Devon Achane.
No, not Devon Achane. Because that was the thing was everyone had called him Travis Etienne for so long, and then he went to New Orleans and he was like, it's actually been Etienne the whole time. I think so. I think he is. Yeah. Well, Etienne is like a
Etienne.
Yeah, but he's I think Jacobs is better than him. So I don't know.
Jacobs last year was 26th and Etienne was 30th.
Yeah,
by my rankings.
That's kind of how I saw it too.
But at that rate, neither one of them should be in the 100, in the top 100 for running back in the late 20s.
Yeah. I think Etienne also gets a bit of the was just a free agent switching teams in the zeitgeist and got a decent contract bump. Like, that's kind of one of those things where it's like, oh, yeah, that's like he's been talked about more recently. But anyway, that's really the only news is that the NFL Top 100 is going on. Other than that, not a whole lot.
And they are going to trickle it out to try to keep
as
in the
slow
conversation.
As possible. Well, someone said this is like
because there's no other news that we hope. We hope there's no other news.
Exactly. Someone said the past 2 weeks is like the only time of the calendar year where the NFL is really getting dunked on. Because like there's like the NBA free agency period where like there are a bunch of trades going on, the World Cup's going on, the fourth is going on, like so many things that's like the NFL actually fell down to like fourth there for a second. Like baseball's obviously still going on. But yeah. But that's really it for news. I also did forget to do the quick spiel. So if you like what you hear, subscribe with us, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, any other audio platform. Also follow us on Blue Sky at Father Son Packer for the latest, Packers related news, keeping you all up to date there. And then leave a comment, leave a review, leave a like, tell a friend, tell a stranger. So that's the usual spiel. I had to throw it in there.
Still better than I did, when I was hosting.
You did not remember to do that.
I didn't remember it until after I had closed recording.
We're at a 99% hit rate on remembering to do it. So I think we've only forgotten like 3 times. So we'll take it. But anyway, let's get into talking about the NFC North offenses because there's not, a whole lot else going on right now. So similar to how the defenses did, we are trying to remain as objective as possible. So if the Packers end up ranking well, we promise we didn't cook the books.
I'm trying to find a way to cook the books here. We'll talk about that a little later.
It just is. It's like, what if we said that everyone's going to play a little more snaps this year, and then we just don't play the 4th and 5th guys? But anyway, like I mentioned before, methodology is very, very similar to the defense. But Dad, do you want to just quickly do a brief summary of the methodology and how we looked at essentially ranking because we're essentially we're ranking the offensive lines, the quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers for each team in the division. And then we're just going to take like who end up ranking the best in the most number of those. But do you want to take us through a little bit about how we went about ranking each position group in the division?
Yeah. So going through the division, the position groups, except I didn't include backup QB. I just did the starting QB. But for all of them, we have a couple of bench players. We have, I think I put in like 2 subs at the offensive line. So the starters was 2 subs. And the way for offensive line, I gave the same sort of snap distribution for all 4 teams based on the league average for like the starters. League average starter, 967 snaps. League average number 6 offensive lineman, 424. And league average second sub, 244 snaps.
Yeah, and for the Packers' sake, hopefully it only does go to that second sub because anything after that looks really spooky.
I don't even know who I would put in that number 8 slot for the Packers. Maybe you don't know for the other teams either.
Yeah, I mean,
so I should say the depth charts are taken from Our Lads. Mm-hmm. So to figure out who the starting offensive linemen and subs and the top, like how many do I do? Top 4 or did I do top 3 wide receivers? Top 3 running backs, top 4 wide receivers, top 3 tight ends, and starting QB.
Yep.
So then, what I did is I gave each player kind of a snap share adjusted score that they contribute to the team. Mm-hmm. So, and then add those all together to get the position group. Now the score is based on a grade for each player that I developed this. So I wanted to get something where I was compiling stats from multiple sources, so like PFF, NFL Pro, Pro Football Reference, Pro Football and Sports Network, whatever, PFSN, and FTN Fantasy. So from these together, I had 15 stats for passing, 12 for rushing, 13 for blocking, 9 pass blocking, and 4 run blocking. There's just not as many stats out there for evaluating run blocking.
Yeah, and like you said before during the defense one, you tried to pick stats that were not really grades, like ones that were more objective.
Yeah, which is hard to avoid for run blocking.
Yes,
because you don't have obvious things like win rate and giving up sacks and hits. So run blocking, I had to compromise there and use some
more subjective stuff that we normally don't like to do. But yeah,
I also try not to double up. So for like receiving, you could get depth of target, air yards per target.
Yeah, and those are all heavily correlated to one another.
Depth, deep throw percentage. So like those are basically all the same thing.
Yeah.
So I try not to double up. I split up the various, pressure related stats. So I separate out hits, hurries, and sacks as separate stats per pass blocking snap for each offensive lineman and for the tight ends. And I did not include like pass block efficiency or pass block, because those are kind of included. They're made up of the other stats.
Yeah. And then whatchamacallit, we ended up, combining them and scaling them in a very similar way to the defense, where we essentially looked at how they were correlated with first you rescaled them, huh?
They all get rescaled from basically a 0 to 1 scale, 0 being the worst and 1 being the best for each stat, so that they can be added together more simply, since they're not like in seconds or yards or whatever. Yeah. And so then but it preserves whether a player is like way different from the other. It's not just turning it into the same size step between players, which you would get from just a percentile. So it's still kind of related to the actual gap between players. So if you have a big, somebody's a real outlier, that's preserved. And then after getting all that, rescaling all the stats, I then handed it off to you.
Yes.
So,
then I did my very easy part of my job.
Which stats actually matter the most?
And we talked about this on defense, but essentially what we ended up doing is combining all these numbers into one number and weighting each individual number based on its correlation to DVOA. And we use DVOA as a measure of essentially how good an offense was. For stuff like receiving, we mostly looked at passing DVOA for like receiving running backs at least. But essentially the idea was like, okay, which one of these stats matter? How do we define what matters? And so we decided what matters is what contributes to like winning or like how good the actual offense is. And so we essentially looked at how each of these numbers correlated to DVOA, and then essentially weighted them by how correlated they were with DVOA, and then added them all together as like a weighted average in that way to one single number for each position.
Right. And then so quarterbacks, I included both passing and running because, I didn't want to give a short shrift to the running QBs.
The running QBs.
Though it actually, the correlations with overall offensive DVOA, the running stats mattered so much less than the passing stats.
Not too surprising.
Yeah, so it was bigger than I thought. And then so tight ends included blocking and receiving. Running backs included rushing and receiving.
And then
their grades.
Yeah.
Oh, and then to figure out so in the North we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 projected rookie starters, or in the depth chart anyway.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before, but essentially just filling those in based on what round they were picked in and like what position they play, and taking that essentially average of other players selected in that round at that position and how they have played as rookies as kind of like filling in that
over
missing
the last
stuff.
8 years.
Yeah. That kind of sums it up as the methodology. We talked about it a little bit last time. But do you want to start? What position group do you want to start with looking at in the NFC North?
Well, I've been starting just because this is the way I first started it, and this is the way it's organized in the doc.
Yeah, we'll just go with the organization. The doc.
So we'll just go with the offensive line.
Offensive line first. So
which is where we get into the most funny business, if you want to.
Yes, because I think that this is, easily, in my opinion, the biggest concern for Green Bay going into 2026 is what the heck is going on offensive line. But how should we feel about the offensive line? Let's talk about it a little bit. How are we looking once we look at it just from a numbers perspective?
Yeah, so one thing I'd done a little bit earlier before we had weighted which stats matter most, and the Packers last year were 25th or something in offensive line performance last year.
Yeah, I mean it was bad. It was fully bad. But what do we project them to be this year?
Yeah, so within the North, based on how they did last year for the whole season, with Morgan at left tackle, Banks at left guard, Ryan at center, Belton at right guard, Tom at right tackle, and then Kennard and Burton as the backups. And that has them finishing 4th in the division. Now, so it's just some interesting notes on the offensive line. Zach Tom, the last 3 years, have been 7th, 4th, and 5th. And he still is really good. He's been first or second.
I think fair to say for Tom, arguably the only good offensive lineman on the team.
Now, so the other thing I did, because of all the narrative about, they were doing better at the end of the year. Ryan was better at center than he was at guard.
Yeah.
Morgan was better tackle than he was at guard.
Which it's better is
and
relative.
Banks did better in the second half of the year when he was healthier.
And the thing is, all three of those betters are very relative. The bar for all three of those was okay, well, I'm not
all
a bottom
3 of those
10
things
starter.
Turn out to be true.
Yes, but the Ryan at guard was a borderline. Banks at the first half of the year was one of the worst guards in the league. Morgan at guard was awful, and Ryan at guard was bad.
So Morgan at guard was 72nd in the league amongst guards.
It was really bad.
Banks was 67th.
Yep.
And Ryan, what was he at guard? He was, I guess counting as a center for the whole season is 26th. Now, if you look at Banks in the second half of the year, he moves up from 67th to 43rd. Morgan at tackle moves up from 72nd to 25th.
Yeah. He is clearly not a guard. Clearly he was not a guard.
and Ryan moves up to the 15th best center. If you just look at his
Ryan's a perfectly average center. I feel like he's fine.
Perfectly cromulent.
Yes, perfectly cromulent.
But so that actually, if you look at the most, green and gold tinted glasses,
I was going to say the most favorable way to look at this offensive line, if you cut only the games they played well,
they finish. They are the number 2 ranked offensive line instead of 4th, and very close to
yes. So, but if you do
Bears,
that cut,
who are first. If
you do that cut, they're second. But overall, like you said, they are 4th if you don't do the cuts of picking and choosing. So overall, Green Bay does rank 4th along the offensive line, which I don't think is surprising because the offensive line is a massive question mark.
Yeah. Oh, and so I should say actually, it's the Vikings were first, Lions second, and Bears third.
Okay.
And then for the Bears, I took the 2024 data for Braxton Jones.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. All 3 of these teams do have question marks along the offensive line. For the Packers, you have essentially, guys that either underperformed last year or are playing in new positions this year. For the Bears, they had their center retire, surprisingly, in the offseason. And then, unfortunately, their left tackle, who played the majority of last year, got hurt at the end of the year and is, I think, currently not expected to play this year, unfortunately. So that's a question mark for them. For the Lions, they're still trying to figure out their, center thing where they had a rookie there last year, and I don't think they've fully resolved whether or not that's what they're going to want to go through. And they have a new left tackle as well. And then for the Vikings, their center also just randomly retired, this year, which was also, surprising and out of the blue.
Yeah, so there's a lot of flux going on around.
Well, isn't it weird division that in the last 2 years, 3 centers in the division just kind of very suddenly and unexpectedly retired between Dahlman, Ragnow. I guess Ragnow kind of people saw the tea leaves on that one. And then Kelly.
Yeah, and Ragnow even tried to come back and is oh no, you're not medically cleared to play. Yeah.
But it's just kind of weird. It's if I had a nickel for every time that a center in the division in the last 2 years retired randomly, I'd have 3 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened 3 times. It's weird that it happened that many times. But okay, just looking at these offensive lines though, I think, you can look at it green and gold glasses and argue that we're second. I do think that we're closer to. I think fourth feels more reasonable for this group when you're looking at it on paper. I mean okay. If you were, let's talk about the Packers briefly, which we've talked about the offensive line a million times, but it's really important. So let's talk about it again. If you were ranking your confidence in the 5 starters, Tom is 1. Where are the next 4?
You mean ranking them just within the team?
Yes, within the team. The 5 starters on the offensive line in confidence, like how you feel they're going to play this year.
I think
Ryan Tom is 1. I think I'm also putting Ryan 2.
I'm probably putting Morgan 3.
Man. And I feel like I don't know if I would put Morgan 3.
A big gap there.
I don't know if I would put Morgan 3, but the fact that a first-time starter at left tackle is the guy that we're third most confident in, or at least you can make an argument for, is not a good sign at all. And then Tom, the fact that the guy I'm most confident in is coming off a patella injury is also not ideal. Like it's the offensive line for the Packers is really rough. But let's talk a little bit about the other offensive lines. Is there any difference in looking at, let's say how do you feel looking at these other offensive lines around the North? Because like I said, there is some uncertainty for them as well.
Yeah. Last year, the Bears offensive line was stellar.
Very good.
It was like one of the top 3 in the league.
Especially run blocking.
And so they're probably going to take a big step back overall as a team in offense because it is unlikely, unless Braxton Jones is amazing coming back from missing last year.
Yes.
But their center is worse, and their likely left tackle is worse.
Yeah,
Darnell Wright is turning into a good player. But, otherwise,
and they're replacing their center with, it's going to be one of either Garrett Bradbury, who we're familiar with, played with the Vikings for a long time, and
got
I would say is
regularly by Kenny Clark.
By Kenny Clark, I would not say is a very good player, or Logan Jones, who was the Iowa center they drafted, I believe, in the 2nd round. So it's going to be one of those 2 guys. I would imagine early on it's going to be Bradbury, but I feel like, if you're a team that drafts an offensive lineman in the 2nd round, you ideally want them to win that job. So like I think that's probably who they want to win the job.
We want a 5th rounder to win that job.
Exactly. Yeah, that's where we are. But so I think that, you're looking at their team, and I think the biggest question marks are obviously center and left tackle, because those are the 2 spots they're replacing on an offensive line that was really good last year. And I think, Braxton Jones has been okay at left tackle in the past, but I think he's a downgrade from Trapilo. And then Bradbury is I think a below average starting center. Like, I don't know if he's the worst starting center in the league, but I think he's somewhere in that 25-ish range, where it's you're ideally replacing him. He's a replacement level center. But that's kind of how I feel about the Bears. I don't think their offensive line is going to be as good, and I think that's going to cause their running game to probably be not as strong this year, which we'll talk about with the running backs in a second. In terms of the Vikings, they've put a lot of resources into this offensive line over the years with, I don't know, would you say mixed results?
They've got some weakness on the interior of their line. Their tackles are good.
Yeah, and
the interior is weak. This is, I think, the story. Is this the story of some of the offensive lines that in the division?
Tackles are good. The
tackles are good.
Interior is a question mark. Yeah. Well, the thing is, they have Donovan Jackson, who they took in the 1st round 2 years ago. So I think their idea is that he's going to be better in year 2. And I think he was also a little banged up last year. And then they're bringing in, I can't remember if they already had Brendel or they're bringing him in to start at center, but he's going to take over for Kelly, who retired. And Kelly was a free agent that they brought in last year. So that was I think a bit of a surprise that they had to replace him right away. And so I think on paper, you look at that offensive line, it's good. Obviously, Darrisaw's an elite left tackle when he's healthy. And so I think, getting him back healthy is going to be huge for them, because I think he was still recovering from the injury he suffered 2 years ago last year. And so I think last year was kind of just a recovery year for him. Hopefully he's back to 100% health this year. And then obviously Brian O'Neill at right tackle is a very good player as well. And then over to the Lions really quickly, because for so long, the Lions offensive line was kind of the identity of their team. Sewell is moving over to left tackle, it sounds like. So that's interesting. I mean, he's so good that I wouldn't that wouldn't be a concern for me if I was a Lions fan, but it is something to monitor. And then, the Lions did bring in Cade Mays to play center this year after, trying to play Ratledge there last year as a rookie. And I think they're going to try and move Ratledge, the rookie, over to guard. This is something I forgot to mention when I was briefly talking about the Lions center replacement plan. They did go and pay a center in free agency to come in. And Mays was pretty good for the Panthers last year, and they got him on a good deal. Actually, I was like, I would have rather given Mays that contract than give Ryan what we gave him, but I don't think it's neither here nor there. But so they do have a little bit of a remade interior with bringing in Mays there, and then kind of just maybe a question mark with, losing their starting left tackle, Decker, who's been there forever now, and moving Sewell over to left tackle. And then they did take a, right tackle in round 1, Blake Miller out of Clemson, who was quite good in college. And so do you think it's possible that we see Detroit's O-line, with the addition of Mays, moving Sewell to left tackle, first-round right tackle, Ratledge in his second year maybe getting a little bit better? Do you see possibly the Lions' offensive line bouncing back to where it was when it was, arguably either the first or second best offensive line in the league?
It's not going to bounce back that much.
You don't think so? That's not what we're not thinking that?
That
okay.
Offensive line was elite. This
that was
offensive line might be good, but it is not going to be competing for a top 2 spot.
I agree. I think it's going to be good, but I think it's certainly going to be better than last year. I think, ceiling is a top 10 offensive line. I think the floor, I mean, last year their offensive line was just fell off a cliff, really. It was quite worse than it was the previous, when it was one of the most dominant units in the league.
Yeah. So I think that was the kind of the core strength and identity of the team. And so that's, I think, why they've struggled a little bit. I think they'll.
Yeah, I mean, losing Ragnow was a big loss.
Year.
Yeah, I think they're going to be better than last year just with the additions of Mays and Miller. But yeah, like you said, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. We have them ranked 3rd in our projections along the offensive line, or 2nd?
We have the Lions 2nd.
Yeah, 2nd. I mean, so that's right behind the Bears, who were one of the best offensive lines in the league last year.
No, actually, so the projection for the Bears actually is to be 3rd in the division.
Oh,
so the
okay.
Vikings
Bears 3rd. Vikings 1st. That's true.
Because
the Bears have a lot of
turnover.
turnover.
The Vikings changes. I mean, so the Bears changes. They've dropped down to 3rd.
But yeah, so we're projecting Vikings, Lions, Bears, Packers. Sorry. But so I would not be surprised to see, the Lions fighting for that one spot and it being close with those additions. But on paper, I do think it makes sense that the Vikings are 1.
What would you think if I told you that Sean Ryan is what? I guess he's not the highest, 2nd highest rated center in the division.
Group. I mean, it's not the strongest center group in the division. Like I said, the other 3 centers have all retired in the last 2 years. It's all replacement level guys. Except, I mean, Mays is a good player. I liked Mays as a free agent. I can't now that he's on the Lions. I can't just pretend that I didn't like him when he was a free agent.
But
I liked him then.
Even if you count all of Ryan's games and not just his games at center.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think Ryan. I mean, like you said,
the thing is, Ryan. If you break down his grade. Pass blocking is bad, straight up bad. Run blocking is excellent. Pass blocking is straight up bad.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Ryan is and we've talked about this for a year and a half with Ryan. Even since he started becoming playable, it's he'll have games where it's oh man, Ryan's really kicking ass out there, and then he'll have games where it's oh goodness, man, can we please block anyone in front of us? Can we please not get the D tackle in front of us cross over our face 3 times in a row? We just have no idea what we're doing. But any final things you wanted to put on the offensive line, or should we move down to running back?
Maybe we should move on.
Okay, on to running back. How are the rankings looking there for our projections?
Right, so this is based on the top 2 or 3 running backs, depending on how the teams deployed them last year. Because the Bears and Lions both just piled all of their carries onto the top 2 running backs, and the 3rd one was not used enough to be worth including.
Yeah.
And the Vikings and the Packers split them more evenly, so you had 3 running backs for those 2 teams. So the Bears, with their excellent run blocking last year, not surprisingly had the number 1 graded a running back room. Swift actually finished a little bit ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs in this.
And so we're also projecting. Are we also projecting the Bears to be 1?
Yes, we're projecting the Bears to be 1, and with Swift and Monangai.
Yeah, Monangai going into year 2 as well. Maybe that year 1 to year 2 leap.
And Detroit number 2 with Gibbs and Isaiah Pacheco. We'll see if Pacheco can fill in for
We'll talk about that in a second. I personally view that as a pretty steep downgrade.
Yeah, so that probably, but Gibbs was excellent. They're still supposed to be pretty good. The Vikings are a significantly lower fourth.
Yeah, but we're third, so we're third, yeah. And I mean, obviously, we don't really know what's going to happen with Jacobs' legal situation with the domestic violence allegations against him. And, that's still out there, and we don't really know what's going to happen with that. Right now, we are projecting Jacobs to start because we haven't heard anything to the contrary, but I think that is an important note there. But yeah, I think on paper, I did see someone say they were ranking running back rooms around the league, and I think they had the Vikings either last or second to last because they are, I mean, Aaron Jones, love him forever, Packer forever. He is old. He is very, 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 very old
for running back. It was interesting when I was going through like the stats we made. Aaron Jones led the league in 2018 in this.
Yeah, I mean,
put together.
Aaron Jones has had an awesome career. He's been an awesome NFL player, Pro Bowler. Like he's been a great player, but he is just old now. And then Jordan Mason, I think, to me, is just a guy. Like he's fine. I don't think he's anything super dynamic. So I'm not entirely surprised to see them fourth. I think they're going to have one of the worst running back rooms in the league. They just don't have a lot on the board there. So I'm not surprised to see them last. I am not entirely surprised to see where the Bears are, just given how they ran the ball last year. But do you feel regression coming there? That felt like maybe, I mean, it could be scheme related. It could be offensive line related. We're projecting them to be the best. I think I expect that 1-2 to be very tight between them and Detroit.
Yeah, so right now, based on last year's performance, they have a substantial lead on Detroit.
Yeah.
It's quite large, actually. But I think that is mostly built on the strength of their last year's offensive line, which is not calculated for.
Yeah, exactly. Which the change in offensive line stuff.
Running back performance last year. And that running back performance, as you know,
was very good. Yeah.
And also dependent on the offensive line that was in front of it.
Yes. And not to take anything away from Swift or Monungai, who both had really good years. The other thing is, right now we're projecting like a essentially, you'd say 70-30 split between Gibbs and Pacheco. Is that, around there, 65-35, something like that? I would not be surprised if that's more like 80-20, because I just don't think Pacheco, ever since Pacheco broke his leg 2 years ago, he really has not looked like the same player, unfortunately. I know the Lions are bringing him into that spot to hopefully be the David Montgomery replacement who they traded to the Texans. I don't think he's going to be that, in my opinion. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, hey, like we're trying this Pacheco thing, but it's just not working. Like we wanted him to be the Montgomery guy, but we might just end up giving Gibbs more carries. Like, and so that's kind of what I'm projecting is like, we're projecting the snap counts based on last year. I wouldn't be surprised if they go a little more Gibbs heavy this coming year. I don't know how you feel about it.
But then what happens to Gibbs' efficiency? Like last year,
the efficiency will probably go down.
Crazy efficient. So that may drop.
Yes, but I think even a less efficient Gibbs touch is going to be more effective than a Pacheco touch. No offense to Pacheco. He was quite good for the Chiefs a few years ago. I really do think that leg injury really sapped him of a lot of athleticism. Moving over to the Packers. Sorry, go ahead.
Gibbs's grade was like 70% better than Pacheco's.
Yeah. I mean, he's a fantastic player. He's one of the best running backs in the league. Moving over to the Packers really quick. We are projecting Marshawn Lloyd for 340 snaps. Would you care to comment on that on that projection? Because that feels optimistic, I guess we'll say.
Yes. So he's listed as number 2. We're putting him there. Brooks
and you're projecting him
number 2.
You're projecting Lloyd using our rookie projection metrics because he has literally played that little in. Is he going into year 3 or year 3? Right. This is going to be year 3 for him.
Year 3, not year 4.
Yes, year 3. I mean, it's hard to keep track, but we're projecting him to be the number 2 guy.
I couldn't use any of his performance yet because he's played like 10 snaps.
10 snaps. Yeah, it's like one game he's played in, unfortunately, which really sucks. But I mean,
in the late load, the other thing, yeah.
Go ahead.
He may have never actually had this many carries in his college career either.
Yeah, I mean,
this is just what the Packers did last year with Emmanuel Wilson.
In the words of Ben Simmons, I'm hopeful, but I've been hopeful before. Like, that's kind of how I feel about Lloyd. Like, I almost think it's like anything you get from him is gravy. I mean, everyone says in every practice, he looks so good. and he just can't stay on the field, unfortunately. But I mean, if we could get him out there, that'd be such a boon to the running game to have just a little more explosiveness back there. I mean,
the chance to go the distance would be awfully nice. Some explosion there, not just grinding.
Yeah, and then the only real running back room we didn't really discuss just now was the Bears one, which I think is fine. I'm not as high on them as our projections. Like you said, I think a lot of the projections are based off of how good their O-line was and how good their scheme was. And the scheme's going to be there. I just think the O-line's going to take a step back. But I think Swift and Monangai are a fine pair. I like maybe like somewhere in that like 11th to like 11th-ish range of like running back duos in the league, maybe 11 to 15 for me. I haven't like actually sat down and looked at them, so maybe they'd be a little higher. But I think they're fine, I guess is how I feel about them.
Yeah, I mean, they're graded on performance.
Yeah, exactly. They performed very well last year. They were way better than I thought they'd be. So
the question is, how many players in the league could you just plug into that situation and get the same production?
Exactly. And does it matter? Like if they're doing well in that system, they're going to be in that system again. And so that's the thing. Like if we took them out of that context of that system, I don't think they'd be nearly as good, but they are going to be in that system next year. So they're probably going to be good again, but like worse O-line, so maybe a little worse.
But not necessarily the same environment.
Yes, so I think it's fair to say maybe a little worse than last year, but they'll probably still be good. Like I
think they'll still be good. They're still going to be able to run the ball.
Exactly.
I think Ben Johnson knows how to run the ball.
Yeah,
I think he's actually a good coach, even if he is kind of a tool.
Yeah, I don't particularly like him, but he clearly knows how to organize a run game, or at least put together an O-line and then from that organize a run game. I think it's going to be a slightly different challenge for him this year with like a worse offensive line, but I still think he'll probably put together a good run game. But yeah, I think he clearly understands offenses. Like,
yeah, though in his career as an OC,
he has only had really good offensive lines.
He's only had elite offensive lines.
You could also argue, is he an offensive line elevator? I think that's a fair argument as well, because I don't think anyone going into last year was going to say the Bears' offensive line looked fantastic, and then they had a very good year.
They added to it in a way. I knew going in from last year when I looked at it.
They added to it,
that offensive line is going to be really good.
But they added to it, but they added a second-round rookie in Trapillo, who I don't think people were like a day 2 rookie in Trapillo, who I think people were liked, but no one loved. They added Jonah Jackson at right guard, who was kind of a cast-off from the Rams. It was like not a guy that like they just pretty much got rid of him. Tooney is a huge addition, and Dahlman was a huge addition, and Dahlman was a solid addition. But then their right tackle Darnell Wright, I think a lot of people were like, oh, is it ever gonna work out for him? And then he had a career year, so I think you could argue it. You could argue he elevated those players as well.
I guess we'll see.
Let's move on though to wide receivers. What does the ranking look like here?
Packers number 1.
I mean, I want to believe. I feel really good about this group, like, when I look at them. Like, I feel good about it.
Yeah. Bears are number 2, Detroit number 3, and Vikings number 4. So, interesting notes. Bad QB play can torpedo even the best wide receivers.
Exactly.
So
and so
Justin Jefferson last year was 34th after being 11th, 3rd, 4th, 6th, and 5th the previous.
I mean, he was in JJ McCarthy jail. Like it was really, really rough for the Minnesota passing game last year. I don't think I will say we are projecting that based on last year's numbers. I don't expect Minnesota to be that low this time next year. No, I think Jefferson's going to have a huge bounce back.
We can have a question about their quarterback play again this year.
Well, this is what I would say. Looking at these depth charts for the 4 teams, I think we easily have the best third wide receiver, because the third wide receivers are Reed, Tesla, Jawan Jennings, and Khalif Raymond. I think Reed is clearly the best of those 3 guys. I think when you look at the first guys and the second guys, that's when you start to look at like, okay, Watson versus St. Brown, Jefferson, and Odunze. I would say Watson is clearly third there. Like I think pretty clearly third.
He was 5th in the league, in the entire league.
I know I am excited. I think we could get a Watson breakout this year, like a true Watson breakout.
Amon-Ra was 2nd in the league. Watson was 5th.
Yeah, I mean,
so a lot of Watson's. Let's see, it was Puka, JSN, Amon-Ra.
Well, if you look back at Watson's efficiency numbers,
Pickens, and then Watson.
Mm-hmm. If you look at Watson's efficiency numbers from last year, they're all crazy. Like, he had a really great year on an efficiency basis, but the thing is, he just didn't play a lot of volume. And so, if he's going to have more volume, that efficiency is probably going to go down. And then you look at the second wide receivers, Golden, Jameson Williams, Jordan Addison, Luther Burden. I'm very optimistic about Golden. I think his play last year was better than the numbers would suggest. But I think, even optimistically, I would put him third there. And I think a lot of people would argue that him and Burden are close. And I think a lot of people might even have Burden ahead of him. So I do think it's interesting that, I think we have the best third guy and then the third best first and second guys. Although Watson's advanced numbers are enough to maybe even be higher than that. But I guess where do you see and then the fourth guys, I think all these guys are kind of more ideas than players.
So though Savion actually graded out pretty well.
Yeah. But what do you think about this? Because I do think our depth along the receiver room is interesting. I also think it's also interesting that we're 3 receivers deep in an era that seems to be trending towards more 12 personnel where there are fewer 3 receiver sets. Are we going to zag? Are we going to be the team playing a lot more 11 personnel than other teams?
We might be forced to zag.
Exactly. Because we'll get to tight ends in a second. But what are your thoughts on looking at these receiver rooms, in that idea of comparing the wide receiver 1s, comparing the wide receiver 2s, comparing the wide receiver 3s?
I think our top 3 wide receivers can go against any team in the league.
Yes.
I think we have that much talent, actually, in our top 3 wide receivers. Speed and ability.
Well, the thing is, I think it's just because I think Reed is one of the best third receivers in the league.
Yeah,
but if you're looking at top 2, I think Golden's going to be good too. I am really high on Golden this year. And I'm high on Watson as well if he can stay healthy, because when he played last year, he was one of the best really good, and he earned that contract extension. But I do think it's interesting to because I don't think neither of us would argue that Watson's better than St. Brown or Jefferson, right?
Well, no, he was 3 spots behind St. Brown.
Yeah, and he's not better than Justin Jefferson.
29 spots ahead of Jefferson.
Yeah, okay, all right. Thank you, JJ McCarthy. Thank you, JJ McCarthy. Good stuff.
And Kyler was not much better than McCarthy last year, actually.
Sure, Kyler did get benched for Brissett, so it's just putting it out there. He did get benched for Brissett.
I have to look as how it was. Brissett was probably better than.
Yeah, but I will say, I think putting the Packers 1, I think is a big testament to just the depth, the top 3 in that room. Maybe lacking the star power of a couple of these other teams, but I feel on paper that makes sense. I do think the Vikings are going to be better this year than we're projecting them to be. I think a lot of that is them getting dinged for McCarthy being really bad last year, and then the Lions are interesting because I think they're very high on Tesla. What do you think about that? Because it does seem to be that he is in pole position for that third spot.
Yes, I don't think there's much competition for that third spot. I think he's kind of a specialist.
Yeah. Yeah, he caught a lot of touchdowns last year, so maybe it's the Chris Carter. All he does is catch touchdowns, but
who needs that?
Exactly.
Let's trade him away.
Yeah.
All he does is catch touchdowns.
All he does is catch touchdowns, but that's kind of, and then Luther Burden for the Bears is another interesting one where I think, if you listen to fantasy podcasts, a lot of people are really high on him because his yards per route run, all those per route metrics were really good.
Really well last year.
Yeah.
I don't know. Some of that may be on the backs of just a small number of plays.
Yeah, but he did well with the snaps he got. So,
he did.
But he is, I think he's the guy that a lot of people have as a second year breakout guy in the fantasy community. So I do think he's an important one to highlight. And then Rome Odunze, has struggled to be healthy the last couple of years, but he's a guy who was a top 10 pick and a lot of people were really high on coming out of Washington. So it's entirely possible that he has a breakout year this year as well.
Yeah, but I don't know if his feet are entirely right.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. They did ask him about his feet recently. I saw an interview where they asked him about it, and he was like, I think this is just the new normal for me, which sucks because you hate to hear that, because I think he had some kind of foot injury. I forget what it was, but I think it sounds like it's just something that's going to keep affecting him, which you hate to hear. But, he is still really talented.
Yeah, and Burden was substantially better than Odunze last year, but I've slotted him at number 2 because that's what
on the depth chart, that's what he is. Yeah.
Well, I guess he could have been.
But I think it's fair to say he's going to be the number 2 guy.
But I think it's more likely that he's the number 2.
But yeah, hopefully
he shows he can take more volume.
Yeah, hopefully Odunze's feet hold up and he can be healthy. Hopefully Watson's everything holds up and he can be healthy. And just hopefully all these guys can stay on the field because all these guys are really fun to watch.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be fun to see the Packers. I think Golden's overall grade was good, not great.
I still feel like when I watched Golden last year, he was good. He was good when I watched him play.
Every time they tried to throw it. So I think his grade is hurt by the fact that he wasn't getting much usage, even though he was running a lot of cardio.
Can we get some more passing volume, please, in this offense, for the love of God?
Per route run stats are not great because they would But every time they would decide to throw to him, it's like, oh, this guy just catches the ball and converts first downs. And
yes, just converts first downs, like gets open and converts first downs. That's what he did. Let's move on though to tight ends because we're already getting a little bit long. How did you have the tight ends projecting out?
So, and this surprised me a little bit, but not entirely, because I figured the top two were going to be the Bears and the Packers. But the Bears were number one.
Yeah.
And the Packers number two. The Packers have the best single tight end in Kraft.
Yeah, which I think is fair. But
number two in the league last year.
Which is why I'm not surprised that we're not one, because who even is the second tight end? I know you have Musgrave here, but I don't know if either of us really believe that Musgrave is the second tight end on this team. I know he is on the depth chart.
No, it could easily be.
But I think by the end of
the team.
Exactly. I think by the end of camp, I would not be surprised if Wiley is too. But so you have them 1 and 2, and then you have Detroit 3 and Minnesota 4.
Yeah, and I think and Minnesota is, well, the Bears and the Packers are way ahead of Detroit and Minnesota.
Yeah, Detroit, the thing with Laporta is he's coming off that back injury, and so hopefully he's, 100% healthy for this year, but I think that kind of dinged his numbers from last year. But it wasn't that long ago that he was viewed as one of the young, up-and-coming, best young tight ends in the league.
Yeah, but what's behind him is pretty weak, even weaker than the Packers.
Yeah, I mean, Brock Wright's more of a blocking guy anyways. He's less of a receiving guy, so Musgrave is I don't even know what he is at this point. We might need to put him in the receiver room next. Minnesota,
he's really just a 6'6" slot receiver.
Yeah, and then Minnesota, I think is probably Hawkinson also got that McCarthy ding from last year, so I think he's maybe better than he showed last year. And then Chicago, the big thing is Loveland as a rookie had a really good year as a rookie, and I think a lot of people are projecting him to take a jump. And their tight end room is interesting because they have Kmet, who's on a decent sized contract, but then they also drafted Roush out of Stanford in the 3rd round, who was a tight end I liked a lot in the draft. And so I think it's interesting to, is Roush the third guy, or did they think he's going to replace Kmet? I don't know. That's just something to think about there. But I think everyone seems very high on Loveland going into next year. He had some really big games at the end of last year that I think people are projecting out. So we'll see there. But yeah, I'm not entirely surprised to see the Bears 1. I'm not surprised to see essentially Kraft is carrying the Packers to 2, and then 3 and 4 Detroit and Minnesota. That doesn't surprise me too much either.
And the reason the Bears appreciate is because Kmet is better than Musgrave and Wiley. At least it was last year. And Roush, we'll see. I think he's more of a blocker. I don't know. I think he's going to have a role.
I liked him at Stanford.
Move up to number 2.
I liked him. But I will say, I would not be surprised to see a Laporta bounce back year, is what I'm going to say. I would not be surprised.
For Loveland, we've seen both Hawkinson and Laporta had great rookie years.
It's true.
And have not matched them.
That is true, but I would not be. I think Laporta, a lot of that unfortunately has been
injuries.
I was going to say, I think Hawkinson, yeah, true. That's him as well. He has also dealt with injuries, unfortunately. But I was going to say Laporta, I think a lot of that has been health related, unfortunately. I would not be surprised to see a Laporta bounce back year. Is one of my takes. I'm going to put
liked
one
him coming out. He had
that
run over people after you catch the ball that you really like in a tight end, which is why Kraft is so much fun.
Yes,
he's number 1 in yak in the league.
But yeah. I don't have a whole lot to add to the tight end thing. I think the big thing is also going to just be how does Kraft look coming back? Is he going to be on a full, snap count right away? I know he said he doesn't think he's going to need to be on a snap count in week 1, but I think the Packers are probably going to be cautious either way. So that's just another thing to keep in mind.
Yeah.
And then there's an entire possibility. We have Musgrave 2, Wiley 3. It might even be not even either of them. There's a chance there's some other mystery tight end that ends up being tight end 2.
Yeah, that's also true. I was thinking we could trade, do a tight end swap.
I mean, I wouldn't.
Musgrave I've heard people throw other names around like Bowers, or maybe one of the Rams, 5 tight ends.
Who did you hear saying Bowers? Who said this?
Oh no, sorry, not Bowers. Other tight
okay.
tight end.
I was going to say they need to be blocked.
No.
They need to have their account deleted if they're proposing Musgrave for Bowers trades. I don't care how many picks you put in there. We're not getting Brock Bowers. But anyway, yeah.
Who was really hyped coming out of college and just hasn't lived up to it.
Mayer out of Notre Dame. Yeah.
Is it Mayer, not Meyer?
I'm pretty sure it's Mayer. But no, so I think the tight ends make sense. Should we end things off with the most important position of all, quarterback?
Right, which is why the Packers are killing it. So Love is number 1.
Yep.
Goff is number 2.
Yep.
Williams is number 3.
Sure.
And either Murray or McCarthy is 4.
I think that's exactly how I would rank them as well.
This surprised me a little bit. I mean, Love number 4.
Really? Interesting.
That didn't surprise me. That part. That's what I expected. I expected it to be somewhere in the top 5. It was Purdy, May, Stafford, then Love.
You mean Love 4 in the league? Yeah,
in the league.
I mean,
Goff
I think
was
he's
8, but and he was number 2 in 2024, but he was 8 last year. Williams was only 20th. I expected him to be somewhere around the 10 to 12 range. So he was a little lower than I expected, though he did move up. He was 31st as a rookie, moved up to 20. He's just got too many inefficient flaws in his game right now.
Yeah.
And also, so Murray was 36th in the league, and McCarthy was 32nd last year. So Murray was even worse.
Murray being behind McCarthy was the most shocking part of this to me.
Yeah, so that was a little shocking. The other thing, the little nugget out there, Malik Willis was substantially the best quarterback in the league last year. A small sample size caveat. He was the best at running and the best at throwing. Both of them. If you did like the chart, his dot would be like way off in that upper right corner as the top runner and passer in the league last year. I'm
really disappointed in the Dolphins in my opinion, it feels like not giving him a fair chance. It feels like he's not getting what is he supposed to do?
Run for his life.
with that depth chart. Exactly. It's like hand the ball off to Achane and run for his life. Have you looked at the Dolphins receiver depth chart? I know we're getting a little bit off topic, but have you looked at this? It's like
I haven't. I could I even recognize a name on there?
I'm gonna name some Dolphins receivers, and you're gonna tell me what you think about this. Their number one receiver on the roster is Malik Washington. Their number 2 receiver is Jalen Tolbert, and their number 3 receiver is Tutu Atwell.
I've heard of those guys.
Those are their 3 receivers. That's the top 3 guys. How are they going to construct a passing game out of that? No offense to those guys, but I mean, they've not been starters on the teams they were on before. Like Tolbert was the 4th guy. Malik Washington was like the 3rd or 4th guy. Tutu Atwell he barely played for the Rams. Like he was a deep threat only. Like how are you supposed to construct a passing game out of that?
It's going to be dumping it off to Achane and also running Achane, run Achane into the ground.
They're on the wing team.
Dump it off to
they're
him.
They're going to run just Malik a triple option offense with Malik Willis and Achane.
They don't have a receiving tight end of any note either, do they?
I mean, I think they added. I'm trying to remember who they added this offseason. They have Dulcich, who's fine, and then they drafted Kasmerick.
Oh, I liked Kasmerick as a late round tight end. Where was?
I think it was Ohio State. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it was Ohio State. Yeah, the Ohio State University. But yeah, so I mean, moving back to quarterbacks, just since we got in that brief Dolphins aside, this is exactly how I would rank them. Love, Goff, Caleb Williams, and then Kyler Murray. I'm not entirely surprised to see it that way, and I don't know. There's not a whole lot for me to add here. Like I think that's general opinion. I mean, I guess some people might have it. I don't really see it another way, but
yeah, it's not even. I don't think it's that close. Actually, the Bears fans will be unhappy, but this is just using data to drive how to add the stats together.
I mean, Caleb Williams had some nice moments in the playoffs, won a playoff game, which is, not nothing. They played the Rams very close, but I mean, I would not say on the whole, he played very well in those games or numbers wise, fantastic over the course of the year. He had moments in the fourth quarters of those playoff games, which were good moments. But I think over the course of the games, a lot of it is the first 3 quarters were pretty iffy, and then he turned it on in the fourth quarter. The first 3 quarters still matter. And I think that's I think that when the numbers, because the numbers aren't weighting the fourth quarter that much more than the first 3 quarters. So that's why the numbers are set having him ranked where he is. But so yeah, I'm not surprised by these rankings at all. This is how I would have them as well. The only surprising thing is Kyler being so low, but he is coming off the career, his worst year of his career. So it's maybe that's part of it. I would expect Kyler to be better than JJ McCarthy this year. I mean, okay, here's my question. Are you projecting then McCarthy to win this job? Because I'm not. I'm projecting Kyler to run away with this job.
I was surprised myself that Murray was because I thought McCarthy was one of the worst quarterbacks in the last several years.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad to watch. But yeah, so that pretty much does it for quarterback. I don't know if there's a whole lot else to discuss there.
Yeah, so I tried to include things that was like, give some weight to making big plays, like third down conversions. I dug that out and added it for all the QBs. Getting first downs. But, then you think, like, if you run into things like game-winning drives or fourth quarter comebacks, the sample size is just too low.
It's
to
so
be
small.
Meaningful.
And the counter argument is that
kind of correlation to it.
Yeah, it's such a small sample size. The counter argument is that football itself is kind of a small sample size sport, and so you do have to extrapolate. But yeah, I mean, game-winning drives, like, there's only a few each year, and like not that many opportunities for them even really each year. But
no, I mean, the league leader has 7, and then you quickly run into like 30 players with like 2 or something. It's just you can't build any significant statistical model based on that.
Yeah, exactly. But let's move on to overall. How are you projecting out the offenses in the North in 2026?
So just using full season data, no cooking the books yet. The Bears and Packers finished tied at an average rank of 2.2, so second point 2.
Yeah, with the Lions right behind them.
Lions right behind them at 2.4, and then the Vikings substantially in last at 3.4.
Yeah.
If you have the optimistic offensive line included, then the Packers are first at 1.6, and everybody else would drop a little bit because of that.
Yeah, I mean,
so
let's just say I am not looking. I am not.
Hopium.
I am not at the optimistic offensive line portion of my belief.
You have never been willing to drink that Kool-Aid so far this offseason.
Not for this offensive line. I've drank the Kool-Aid for other offensive lines and other defensive lines before, but not for this offensive line. Not when they're making Lucas Van Ness look like TJ Watt. Not for me.
Yes, just because he's just wrecking the offensive line.
Just because he's literally unblockable. Because he's literally unblockable, yeah. But no, so I do think that's
this
kind
is the
of
best defensive line ever. We've heard that tune before.
Well, and then something I forgot to mention on the quarterback side is I think, even the people who are big Caleb Williams believers, I think a lot of that is based on the idea like, oh, he made a big jump from year 1 to year 2, and then he's going to make another jump from year 2 to year 3, which I think is like, you can make that argument as well.
It's possible.
But I think that's certainly possible. But I do think that, like, as constituted from what we saw last year, I still have Love, Goff, Williams, McCarthy. And even if Williams takes a jump, I think it would have to be a pretty sizable jump for me for him to catch either Love or Goff.
Yeah, so something possible does not make it likely. So
exactly, and I do
trying
think
to go with what's more likely here.
And I do think it's likely that he's better than he was last year. I think the question is how much better. But anyway, back to looking at offenses overall. I do think makes sense to me. Packers, Bears, and then small gap Lions, bigger gap Vikings. I think Vikings fans would say like, hey, like I know Kyler wasn't great last year, but he has been good in the past. And he's playing with arguably the best offensive like play caller that he's played with before, and the best receiving core that he's played with before. And so
didn't help him last year.
I mean, he didn't have a very good offensive play caller or
no. I mean the Vikings. It didn't help the Vikings last year.
Well, I think that's more to me a testament to how like rough McCarthy's year was. And so I think the argument is Kyler Murray has shown he can be a good quarterback in the league, is going to have the best supporting system he's ever had. And I think their argument is if you bake that in, I'm just trying to make the devil's advocate argument for why the Vikings might be closer to the pack than we have them, because we're projecting them to be well short of the next 3 groups. But I think the argument is like, oh, if Kyler is better like than McCarthy and like closer, if Kyler is closer to how he's been in his better years because of the surrounding environment, then that should elevate everything around him, because I think, like we talked about with the wide receivers and the tight ends, that those numbers were just getting dragged down so hard by quarterback play last year that you could see everything, the quarterbacks, the tight ends, and the wide receivers rankings bounce up and bring the Vikings closer to the pack. Now, I'm not saying that that's what I believe is going to happen. I do think they're going to be better this year, but I'm just giving a devil's advocate argument for like the Vikings having a better offense than we're projecting right now based on these numbers.
You could make the argument that the environment is so good for McCarthy that it got his ranking above Kyler's.
Yes.
And that Kyler's environment was so bad.
And I don't think Kyler's,
But Brissett finished 24th in the league.
Well, I was going to say, I don't think Kyler's environment last year was bad per se. I just don't think it was as good as the Vikings is projected.
But if it's true that McCarthy really is one of the worst quarterbacks in the last 4 years, then you would expect their entire offense
to elevate based on competent quarterback
Kyler
play.
Should be better. The receivers should be better. I don't know about the running backs.
Or maybe McCarthy wins the job, and it's you never know.
Like you said he's going to.
Like you said he's going to. But anyway, this has been our preview of the offenses of the NFC North. Any final things you want to add, Dad?
That's most of it. There's one thing that I don't include here, and that's estimates of progression or regression as players get further into their careers.
Yep.
And that's something I could maybe dig out of the data by getting the average improvement in years 2, 3, 4, et cetera, and then the average decline when you get past year or whatever, when you get
just past forecasting
and start to go down.
Mm-hmm.
And you could try to make a estimate of that. It would take some time.
Yeah. But I will say, I think my main thing on the offenses of the NFC North is that I am really excited to see the Packers receiving core get more concentrated volume towards Watson, Golden, and Reed. I'm excited about that. But that's my main thing. But anyway, this has been, like I said, our preview of the NFC North offenses. Coming up, we start doing some previewing of training camp stuff, so keep your eyes tuned to that. If you want to hear our previews of the defenses of the NFC North, that was last week, so go check that out as well. Apologies again for the late one this week. We will still be doing one this weekend, so keep your eyes tuned there. Some stuff came up, so we had to do this one a little bit later. But anyway, thank you again for listening. If you like what you heard, subscribe with us, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon. Leave a comment, leave a review, tell a friend, leave a like. Follow us on Blue Sky at Father Son Packer. But anyway, that's the whole spiel once again, in case you missed it the first time. But again, thanks for listening, and until next time, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.